So, I'm going to talk about how transformational metamorphosis, as it relates to the branding and business aspect, the problem with that, especially as the marketplace is undergoing its own metamorphosis. And I've talked about this in other videos, how the metamorphosis process is really about the breaking down of something old, becoming something new. All right. And metaphorically, we leverage the caterpillar to the butterfly, and being able to see that dynamics as evolutionary and not just a transformational process. Of course, transformation is happening, but this is more like evolution. So here's the problem with the illusion that has been taking place in terms of thinking that a marketplace or brands or businesses have actually become butterflies, and that's not true, even though they've used that analogy. And you've heard me in different videos talk about how it's more like the tadpole to the frog, all right? And that's the transformational aspect that actually has been going on. Here's where that's problematic. If you know anything about the anatomy of a frog and how a frog exists in certain environments, it really has to have a very uncluttered environment in terms of how it can function at its best. Frogs cannot be around different dynamics that have a lot of different things happening, because their anatomy starts to break down from that. Environmentally, that's not how they can thrive or survive. So, here's the deal. In a marketplace for years that has been more of this information overload, very overpopulated and oversaturated with a lot of unnecessariness, okay? And with that being kind of the dynamics that's been for years, there's so much momentum around that. So now, as the newer energy is coming forth for the new now business era dynamics, in a sense, this new now business normal, as those frameworks are starting to take place, it is exposing, in a sense, the previous frameworks, or we still say the current frameworks, in a sense, that have been in place. And they're with that frog-based energy, right? But here's where the decomposing is going to happen in a metamorphosis that is actually taking place. It's almost like doing yourself in with all the information and all these different strategies and unnecessariness that's taking place, with trying to over inundate people with certain things. Again, the transformational process that's been more like a frog, we have a bunch of frogs in the marketplace. And with this overpopulation and oversaturation of unnecessariness as it relates to the business dynamics, the marketing, all these different things, it's going to start to break down the anatomy of that frog-like transformational process, right? When the more expanded context continues to come in, which is the evolutionary, the new evolutionary process, because even evolution has taken on a completely different metamorphosis as well. And so that which does not sync up in the newer context of these concepts will cease to exist. I mentioned in a previous video how Usher has this quote about evolve or evaporate. And so if you don't sync up with the evolution, evaporation is going to take place. The disintegration of brands and businesses are going to start decomposing on levels far beyond what your mind can comprehend. And so again, since we have these frogs now and frog frameworks in the marketplace, the oversaturation of unnecessariness that has been created through all these dynamics is going to be the very thing that starts to end that frog-like experience. But what happens is that if most don't become aware of the shifts that they need to make to take on the evolutionary aspect of the metamorphosis, then you're going to see brands and businesses that will cease to exist. And it doesn't matter how long they've been standing, how long legendary frameworks they have, those things will they will decompose. They're going to start crumbling down. It's already happening because the ultimate marketplace metamorphosis is already at hand. But it's a progression that's just been moving, but then it accelerates itself, and next thing you know, things are going to change overnight. And then it's going to become extremely obvious that the lack of preparation and the lack of evolution did not take place during certain times in order for them to have been out ahead of different dynamics, that are changing. So again, frogs, they can't thrive in cluttered environments. They can't. And so again, in a cluttered marketplace and oversaturated with just stuff I don't even want to name at this point, because most of you, if you're watching this, you already know, over inundated with email marketing, guerrilla marketing, just so much out there of information overload that, yeah, it's just not going to be beneficial moving forward. So that's the problem, again, with the transformational aspect of metamorphosis and not the actual evolutionary. Because when you come through this evolutionary way of that unique metamorphosis, you are going to break down the old so that the new can emerge. And it is a process of becoming unformed. The transformation aspect doesn't necessarily really mean that, because you could transform something just like a frog can kiss. You can kiss a frog and it transforms into a prince. It's more of that quantum type of experience versus an evolutionary type of experience. And the evolutionary type of experience is what is required in terms of becoming a new creation. So before I start going too deep, around this, I just wanted to share this so that you are aware that if you start seeing your frameworks, they're breaking down and you can't make sense of what's going on. You're trying to bring formation into something that can't be brought into a form, especially under that old context. So you've got to be able to see your metamorphosis differently and see it as evolution, new evolution, versus just the traditional transformational aspect. So don't be a frog during this season. Frogs have some great qualities for sure, but in the marketplace, they're getting smashed. They will be getting smashed regularly. So you want to make sure that you're syncing up in this new vibration. And I have, some information below, certainly, and products and platforms that you can, explore around this, because it's time for you to succeed. But you will not be able to succeed leveraging old templates that are a minimum of 50 years behind in their demonstration. But now with the evolution, we get to bring all of it, together, that you can use the transformational aspects, but it's more transvolutional is what I teach. There's elements of it, but the transformation aspect cannot be the bigger dominating force, in a sense, moving forward. It definitely has to be the evolutionary expansion of innovation on many ways. Okay, so avail yourself to what I have below, and I look forward to being back with you soon.